I've been calling booksellers story dealers for since I've been making these videos, to be honest. It just randomly came to me. And to be honest, when I started saying it, it was a bit of a joke. But then when I got to interview the deputy manager from the Brunswick Bookshop, and I was listening back to the interview, that's when everything clicked. I was like, I was saying this to myself as a joke, and in actuality, I think it's probably the best description. They're not booksellers, they're story dealers. They deal in stories. They don't, yeah, there's no other way to describe it. Books is just a description of the object, but the stories are what fills the pages. And that's what the booksellers are dealing in. And so, like I said, I interviewed the deputy manager of the Brunswick Bookshop, and I went in with this idea of finding out the story behind the Brunswick Bookshop. And that was and still is my original question. But I went in for one story and I came out with, I don't even know how many more. So many more stories, so many more questions, so many rabbit holes for me to go down. So what I thought would just be one video is now seeming like a series on Brunswick Bookshop, because it's been kind of eye-opening and inspiring, to be honest. So, like I said, I interviewed the deputy manager of the Brunswick Bookshop, and he confirmed for me that booksellers aren't booksellers at all, they're story dealers. And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting anything before I went into the interview. I just went in with complete curiosity because I had been going to the Brunswick Bookshop from the day it opened, because it was literally right round the corner from from where I work. And you know, I love books. I saw a bookshop. That's not to say that there isn't other bookshops around that area, because there is. But I don't know, it was just something about Brunswick Bookshop that kind of made me want to come in and have another gander, you know? They had nice selections, like some vintage stuff, some newer stuff, and there's always like new stock coming in, so there's always a reason to just come in and have a little look and see. So like I said, I wasn't expecting anything, but I was curious about, you know, like the story. I love stories, I love books, I love finding out those things, and this was one of those things that I was just curious about, like, what's the story behind it? What set this up? Why? I had so many other questions. I had actual formalized questions when I was interviewing the deputy manager, don't worry. But it was just interesting for me. So like I said, I wasn't expecting anything. Instead, I ended up learning about booksellers. And like I said, it wasn't my initial question that I went in to find out the story behind Brunswick Bookshop, because in actuality, through the interview, I did find out the story, but there were so many other interesting stories, which is one of those interesting stories is what made this video. So let's talk about what it means to be a story dealer. Because I've been throwing this term around, but what does it actually mean? So the deputy manager who I interviewed at Brunswick Bookshop, I found his story really interesting because he has been selling books for nearly half his life. I will leave his age anonymous. So it keeps you guessing like how old he could be and how half his life. Anyway, but he's been selling books for half his life. And I found that kind of interesting, only in the way how he talked about books, the way how he talked about stories and the connections it had on him, and more so like how he said that books changed his life, or certain stories changed his life from him reading them. And I found that all interesting. It kind of told me that with having this knowledge of, sorry, I've missed some things. I've missed some things about how his journey from being in the big business of big company book dealerships, like the W.H. Smiths, the Waterstones. He actually worked for Foyles, I believe. And he said back when he was working there, he was the curator of film. He was curating the film section. And now it's interesting that he's gone from curating the film section at this big chain book dealership, and now he's moved to working at an independent dealership where he curates books for a growing community of book and story lovers. And I just found it all interesting, just his journey, his knowledge, his understanding. I asked the question about if he thought that the reading has changed through, where is this question? Does make it easier. I've got to flick back through a couple of episodes. Where did I write these questions? Oh no. We're going to have to forget this. No, but I want to find the question. It makes my life easier. Oh, here it is. So I asked him if he had noticed if people's reading habits had changed over time. And he said yes. And the reason being was that he said back in his day, when he was younger reading books, he used to read books that weren't necessarily for his age group. He used to read books that were for older people. And I found that interesting because my mum recently told me this story, which she recently told me this story about back when I was younger, and there was an adult book that I was reading, but my mum gave it to me to read because she knew that I love books and she knew the type of stories that I probably would enjoy. So she recommended this book and she gave it to me to read. And she told me this story about how I went to school and I was reading this book at school, and maybe I had to tell the class about this book and how much I loved it. Maybe I added that, I'm not sure. but definitely the part about reading the book at school. And then she said that after I came home that day, I came home with a letter from my teacher to give to my mum. And my mum said in that letter, it said that my teacher thought that it wasn't appropriate for me to be reading that book because it was way out of the age range for someone of my age to be reading. And my mum said to me that what she ended up doing was she told me that basically I shouldn't take this book to school anymore to read. I should just read it at home. And that solved that problem. But I just found it interesting that we had like this similar connection with books from a young age, that reading books that are maybe not for our age group, but still because of the story. And yeah, but this story in particular, I found it interesting that when my mum got the letter from school or from the teacher saying that the teacher didn't think that the book was appropriate for me to read, instead of my mum saying, oh yeah, nah, maybe you shouldn't be reading it, she was just like, nah, you can still read it, finish it, but just don't read it at school. That really got to me. But anyway, back to this story dealer that I interviewed. So, yeah, the fact that he now curates for a growing community of book lovers and readers at the Brunswick Bookshop and their other collection of branches within their Booksellers Own Trust, which I'm not going to fully go into, although maybe I should because I've mentioned it, but I'll go into depth more about in another video. But basically, the Booksellers Own Trust, from my understanding and my notes, maybe it was on the back of this. Yeah, it is on the back of this. So it's kind of like, and like I said, I'm going to go over this briefly. It's kind of like a how did I say it? It was kind of like TK Maxx, kind of like how, no, maybe that's not right. I remember saying that in the interview, but that's not the right. Look, I'm going to go into depth about it because that's not what I planned to talk about. But there's a collection of branches within the Booksellers Own Trust, which include the Brunswick Bookshop, House of Books in Muswell Hill, House of Books in Crouch End, Upper Street Bookshop on Upper Street, and their recently new branch, which opened about a year ago, Camden Town Bookshop. And that's all I'm going to talk about, about the Booksellers Own Trust for now. Anyway, so he works at the Brunswick Bookshop and I believe House of Books from what he was talking about. But within those places that he works, he's always sharing stories. So he said that he had a mission to share, either to sell or to recommend the author Ursula Gwynn to at least one person that comes into any of the bookshops that he's at, because he absolutely loves that author. He told me that I hadn't heard of her, but I will be looking into finding a book from her and reading one because I got such a great recommendation. He said that she is your favorite author's favorite author, and just from that recommendation alone, I was just like, geez, if my favorite author loves this author, then geez, maybe I'm gonna love her too. So I'm definitely gonna check her out. But the fact that he's always sharing stories, and it's less about the books, because the books are just a physical object. It's more about the people that he's connecting with these stories. A funny thing that he said to me was that a lot of people nowadays read books because it's something that they may have watched on Netflix, or something that they may have seen on some kind of streaming platform. And he said it was funny for him that there's a lot of people recently, they've been coming in and buying, where did I write this note? I wrote so many notes. What was the name of this book? I seem... I don't remember where I wrote this note. I wrote so many. Oh, I think it's here. Yes. So he said recently he noticed that people had been coming into the bookshop and buying Lonesome Dove, and reading that book, he said, like, loads of people, like young people, old people, everyone's been going in and buying that book. And I don't know anything about it, but since loads of people have been buying it, I probably won't buy it. Straight away is all I mean. I won't buy it straight away because it's got a hype. And if it has a hype, it means, I mean, I haven't heard anything about it, but now I know that people have been buying it. I don't want to buy it straight away. I'm going to leave it, let the hype die down. And then when the hype is died down a little, then I'll buy it and then check out and read it. Anyway, so he said that Lonesome Dove, everyone's been coming in and buying this book. And he said that he found it funny because when he was a kid, his parents used to watch that series on TV, Lonesome Dove, and now everyone's buying this. So it's interesting how reading habits have changed now, that because people are inspired by, oh, I've seen this series on TV, I'll read the book, to maybe more curiosity, or because they knew an author kind of thing. And it's funny that he mentioned that in the interview, because I recently picked up a book because I watched the series on Apple TV Plus, and I watched the first series and I was like, oh, probably the first series ended on a cliffhanger. I'll check out the book. Because then, not that I'm trying to get spoilers, but then I'll see like the overarching story and like how the things are pieced together. Maybe there's some things that they missed out from the first series that is in the book. You know how like they change things for TV shows or movies to make it fit for viewing pleasure, but maybe that didn't exactly happen in the book. So recently I bought Margot's Got Money Troubles. And I bought this book from Aldi. Who knew that Aldi sell books? I didn't until I went into Aldi one day and I was just like, oh, books? Let's see what you got. And I was like, Margot's Got Money I keep saying problems. Margot's Got Money Troubles. Jeez. I've seen that on it. I keep doing that as well. Do you ever do a thing where you're talking about a specific, or you're thinking about a specific streaming platform? may it be anything other than Netflix. So it's like Amazon Prime or Apple TV, or only other one that comes to mind for me is Crunchyroll. But it maybe is something else for you. And you're thinking about that platform to say it, but instead of saying that platform, you instantly say Netflix. It's kind of like how like MP3 players all basically get called iPods. I don't know. Let me know if you do that too. Anyway, so I bought this book because, well, because it was blue. Let's be honest. It's aqua. It's blue adjacent. That's what caught my eye originally. But then I saw Margot's Got Money Troubles, and I was like, geez, I've seen this series on Apple TV, and well, I'm intrigued to see the rest of the story. Like I've only seen season 1. What else happens? So it's funny how what he spoke about, how reading habits have changed. I actually also fell into that same trap. So I found that funny. But yeah, the one thing that he loves about working at Brunswick Bookshop is the fact that he's closer to books, which is prime time definition for a story dealer. What story dealer that you know doesn't like to be close to books? I mean, they work surrounded by books. Story dealer 101, close to books. See? 2, he loves meeting new people. And he said that Brunswick Bookshop is more of a touristy destination bookshop, in the sense that because it's so central, they get a lot of people who are passing through London. He also said that London is one of the best places. Sorry, let me repeat that and get his words correctly. Words correct. He said that London is the best city in the world. Now, I'm not going to disagree with him because I was born in London, so who am I to say that London is not the best city in the world? You may disagree, and you're valid to have your opinion, but let's be honest here. London is the best city in the world. And he said that London is the best city in the world because it's like an intersection for the rest of Europe and America, where I guess those are the type of tourists that he meets most often in the Brunswick Bookshop, so that they are meeting different stories through the Brunswick in this central point. And one of the most fascinating things that he said about meeting people at the Brunswick Bookshop, or just at bookshops in general, is that he said that you meet the best of people at the bookshop. And when I was listening back to that in the interview, it made me sit and think for a second. I don't think he means like you meet the best of people, like the best people, but you meet people at their best at a bookshop. It's very rarely that you go to a bookshop and you're seeing like antisocial behavior, like people running riot, people throwing books all over the place, tearing pages. Oh my God. Just the thought of all these things happening in a bookshop. The travesty just makes my skin crawl. Tearing pages. Could you imagine someone just comes into a bookshop and just like don't make what I'm saying give you ideas now. I'm just saying, like, it would be horrible. And like, don't like take this horrible as like, oh yeah, this would be a fun prank to do. No, it would not be a fun prank to do. Don't be touching books in shops, ripping pages. If you rip it, you buy it. Like, remember this rule. If you break it, you buy it. So, yeah. Anyway, God forbid that ever happens, but that's something that I have never seen ever in my entire life when I've gone into a bookshop. You don't see people running around. You don't see people... okay, I was about to say you don't see people like bouncing around in the spot and excited and which is exactly all the things that I am within a bookshop, all contained to one spot. I'm not like running around. I'm just like, I find a book, I'm picking up like, oh, I'm excited. You know, I might bounce around, might be reading the blurb like, oh, this seems interesting. Say it out loud, you know. But these are all normal reader things. No one bats an eyelid in a bookshop. No one, people might be looking over, but I'm not looking back at the people. So that means that they didn't look at me, technically. It's like that saying, like, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, did the tree really fall? Yes, the tree fell, but no one was there to hear it. Same way, if someone's looking at me and I don't look at them, did they look at me? Yes, but I didn't see them looking at me, so technically it didn't happen. But anyway, back to the story dealer. I think one of the biggest moments, the moment that gave me the aha moment about story dealers and the fact that this bookseller that I was talking to was actually a story dealer, was when he started talking about his recommendations, his book recommendations. Yep, that's on this page. When he was talking about his book recommendations, I asked the question, is there any books that you find yourself recommending over and over? And the part that I found interesting was that he wasn't just recommending me a book, he was giving me a story behind why he loved the book, why that story mattered to him, and why he wanted to share it with more people. And that was what intrigued me. I was just like, wow, you're telling me this whole story before I even reach the cover, which now gives me a whole different way of looking at this book before I even touch it. This book has history. History, of course, because depending on when it was published, that's history alone. But history in the sense of someone else has this greater connection to this story that I haven't even experienced yet. But the fact that he was able to share it with me so articulately was what made me think, maybe I want to check out that book. So one of the books that he recommended was The Overstory by Richard Powers. And the reason why I said before Lonesome Dove is a hyped up story that I probably won't read straight away because I know now that it's hyped up and loads of people are reading it, is because of something that I already do in general, like with TV shows. If there was, like with Stranger Things, I think it was, for example, everyone was watching it and I was just like, everyone's watching this right now. Maybe I'll check it out in a year when the hype has died down. Like, then I can check it out, like clear vision, no one's talking about it. Maybe there'll be a season 2, but maybe I can catch it in that lull when people are just talking about season 2, but there's not like a hype about it. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then I can watch it clear-headed, no other people's opinions in there. But anyway, he said something about the book, The Overstory by Richard Powers, that the reason why he recommends it to people is because when he was first told about this book, everyone was recommending it to him, and he was just like, you recommended me this book. Sounds cool. I hear what you're saying. That's dope. But I'm not going to check it out right now. So he left it, put it in his to read later pile, and just left it there for years. And then when he actually read the book, he said that it was the best thing that he's ever read, which made him kind of feel like silly for like leaving it in the back burner or the to read later pile for so long, because it was such a great story, such a great book. He didn't give me any feelings about what the book was about, but just the fact that it was a story that was recommended to him that he ignored for years. And then when he finally read it, it was the best thing that he ever read. That makes me curious. What is this story? Like, what is it about? Like, he didn't tell me anything about it, but that's down to me to discover the story. And that's the beauty about it. That's why I say they're story dealers, is because, yeah, they're selling books, but that recommendation was pure story, pure how it affected him. Now, this is the reason why he shares it. Not, it was about this, that. I rate it so much out of 10, 5 stars. No, just the raw feeling of this is the best story that I've ever read. I can't believe I ignored it for so long. Yeah, I will put this in my to read later pile. I will not ignore it for years, or I'll try not to. But yeah, I'm definitely going to read this and find out all about it. And when I do, I will speak to him and I'll be like, yeah, this is the best story that I've ever read, or no, this isn't the best story that I've ever read, or this is in the top or whatever. But it gives me more of a, yeah, thank you for the recommendation kind of thing. I can come back and talk more about this book or this story, or how it changed my life, or how it didn't, or whatever. His next book recommendation, well, let's see, because the thing is, he recommended the book and then authors. So he did recommend another book. I think it was by Kim Stanley Robinson. He said it was a sci-fi author, and the reason why he he said it's the ultimate book about landing on Mars. And the reason why he recommends this book is because each book is about 3 inches thick. And there's 3 books in the series. It's Red Mars, Blue Mars, Green Mars. And the reason why he recommends it is because it's a great story, but also because if someone commits to reading the first one, they get through all 1,000 pages, maybe more. I don't know how thick 3 inches is in book to visualize it, but I'm thinking pretty thick, probably thicker than like these 2 books, maybe another book on top or 2 books on top, who knows. But anyway, it's thick. And he said that if someone comes in and buys Red Mars. Is that the first one? I'm not 100% sure, but that's the order that he said it in. So I'm assuming Red Mars is first, Blue Mars is second, then Green Mars is third. So if someone comes in and reads Red Mars and then comes in and says, I'm looking for Blue Mars, that's the next one in the series, then that kind of shows that level of commitment. The fact that people come back to finish the rest is like the reason why he recommends the book. Not only does he believe that it's the ultimate book about landing on Mars, but also the fact that when he does recommend it to people and people enjoy the story, the fact that they come back to finish the series just humbles him, I guess. Maybe humble isn't the best word or the right word, but I couldn't find the right word that I was looking for. So I'm sorry if humble isn't the right word, but yeah. And, that idea of, again, dealing in stories. He's selling this book to people. Yes, he is. But the story that's contained within Red Mars, the fact that someone will read it cover to cover, all 3 inches of it. Again, I don't know how many pages that is. I really need to look that up. All 3 inches, and then they would come back for more stories to finish the overarching story of what Red, Blue, and Green Mars tells the reader. And his other recommendations were Ursula Gwyn, because like I said, he has a mission of sharing Ursula Gwyn with everybody. So take that as a recommendation for Ursula Gwyn. The reason why, like I said, he said that Ursula Gwyn came to him later in life, but her books changed his life. And like I said before, she is your favorite author's favorite author. And he recommends her to parents who are looking for an alternative to Harry Potter, because he says that it's about wizards, it's about magic, but then it turns into stories about women, stories about growing old, just other deeper stories that you wouldn't think would come from this mystical, magical world, but Ursula Gwyn takes you there. So just the fact that he said that the stories within her books changed his life, like I said, I came in with a few questions. I now have more questions. How did it change your life? I should have asked at the time, but I was just trying to get through my questions. But now I'm thinking, how did it change your life? I'm curious to know why, how, and like, what about her stories? I need to read. I need to find out more. Again, other than the fact that it's about wizards and magic, I assume because there's wizards, I don't know much about it other than the name of the author and that she's amazing. So I'm going to check her out. You're going to check her out, because with this mission, we need to get more people to read Ursula Gwyn. And his final recommendation, I believe, yes, his final recommendation was Elizabeth Strout. And he said that he recommends her covers. What does this note say? yes, he recommends this author to people because her covers look kind of like something that your gran would read. And she is a upper middle class white lady that understands him. To put that into context, he is a black man. So for him, that having this resonance with someone that's so different to him is kind of, what is the word that I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but I can see it must be quite, someone having that level of empathy to understand you, but not being able to, not walking in your shoes is kind of quite a power, quite a skill, especially as an author. So I can understand how that must feel. He said that she gets him, she gets his mother, his partner, his everyone. And just to actually read someone who has that level of empathy, I am intrigued and really curious, because what does that even look like? He says he's a filmmaker, and to have that level of empathy as a filmmaker would be just crazy. So knowing that an author or that level of empathy is out there is kind of beautiful, you know? So I will check out Elizabeth Strout because of the story that connects to her, from that I wouldn't have known that would be available to me. And that's the other thing that I find interesting about recommendations, or even just people that you meet. Sometimes stories aren't available to you, and not because they're unavailable to you because they're out of reach or because someone doesn't want you to have it, but they're unavailable to you because you haven't found the connection to it yet. A lot of the time when I go into a bookshop, I'm picking up a book on, I don't know, like I said, sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's just a curiosity, sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the text. But ultimately, what makes me buy that book is the story. And it's the story that connects me. Sometimes it's, oh, I don't know anything about this, I want to find out more. Or sometimes it's, oh, I wasn't interested in this story before, but now I know someone that has told me more about this, and now I'm more intrigued. Now I've found a story that connects to that. But that story may have been closed off to you in the sense of, you may have picked up the book, you may have read the blurb, but you may have thought, story sounds interesting, but not at this time. But then the circumstances change. You meet someone that tells you a story that makes you have another or a greater curiosity for something that you didn't know that you wanted to read until you met that person that told you the story, which I find the most interesting. And that's not just separate to story dealers. That is to everyone, like narrative nomads, story hunters, storytellers, like every single one of you watching. Like I said before, it's innate for human beings to tell stories. That's what we do. We tell stories, we pass down stories, we contain meanings and knowledge and things that we want people to remember within the story. Sometimes it's less about the story and more about the thing that someone's trying to tell you within the story that they've built up. But they have to tell you this story so that they can tell you the thing, you know? But every single one of us is a storyteller. So, yeah. We go to story dealers so that they can set us up or connect us with the right story for us. Sometimes we get a recommendation, and it's something that the deputy manager said to me. Sometimes he may recommend something to someone that's completely left field, but when they read it, they're like, actually, I see why I was recommended this book. And it's about connecting those stories to people. It's an interesting thing that he said about about when people come in to read books about TV shows that they've watched. He can kind of read a person from the type of book that they're picking up to read, especially if it's based on a TV series. Because if it's based on a TV series, it means that they may have, if they watched this and they're reading this, then they may be interested in reading this. And when they've read that, then they probably end up watching the series based on that book. And then it all goes completely full circle. Then they watch another series, buy the next book, recommend, it's full circle. They're dealing you stories. They're sending you around story rabbit holes and story burrows so that you can find the story that connects to you, that resonates with you. And not every story does, and that's okay. But some stories change your life. Some stories change your way of thinking. Some stories are the story that you needed to read at that moment in time. But you won't know until you open that cover. So, yeah, that kind of pretty much leads me into my realizations and my reflections, to be honest. And as I just said before, I said some of them. But what I kind of realized post the interview is that story dealers, or the story dealer that I happened to interview, he recommends books in a similar fashion to the way how I do. So maybe he is also a narrative nomad. Anyway, that's something for me to discuss with my storyologist or the book doctor or whoever I have to talk to next. But yeah, it's interesting the way how he tells a story about a book, so that now when I go and pick up this book or buy this author or any of the books that he recommended me, I already have this story before I reach the cover. Maybe I take it on board while I'm reading it, maybe I don't, maybe I only reflect on it after I finish reading it. But it kind of gives this book another layer to the story, a story within a story. No. Yeah, kind of like story inception, but the way how I see the layer is like the story is on top of the cover. So it's not within this, the other story is on top of it. But maybe it could be story inception, but I wanna, nah, it's not story inception. It's just a layered story. Anyway, the fact that it's not just the objects of the book that he's recommending. It's not this book. Yeah, he's recommending the book to you, but he tells you a story to do with this book without spoiling it, but makes you curious to read it. And that's what you want, isn't it? You don't want someone to spoil and tell you everything that the book is about. What you want is someone to make you curious enough that you want to actually pick it up and read it. Something to spark your interest instead of it being you getting the play-by-play. Kind of like, you know, like when you watch a trailer, and nowadays when you watch trailers, it basically just shows you the play-by-play, all the beats of the movie, so you know exactly what's going to happen before you even watch it. Sometimes it's like you watch a trailer and you're just like, what is the point of me even watching this film? But hey, I digress. You don't want that when you're reading a book. You don't want that when you're watching a TV series. Sometimes you just want to read the description and then just get into it. But this way, you not only get to read the blurb but before you go into it, but you also have this shared history that is connecting someone else to a book. But that's the reason why you picked it up. So I recommend the stories surrounding the books. And the deputy manager of the Brunswick Bookshop does the same. Although it's a story that's more connected to him, that's what fascinates me. I don't know if other people feel the same way, but that's what fascinates me when someone recommends me a book. Not what it's about, but what it means to you. What are you getting from it? And if that's what you got from it, that sounds interesting and intriguing enough for me to pick it up and read it, then, well, then the book is just the object. The story is what brings you to the book. So I went into the Brunswick Bookshop however many months ago, maybe it was a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, whenever I came up with this idea where I was starting to make videos like this. And I went into the bookshop hoping to learn the story behind the Brunswick Bookshop. And I did, like I said, I learned that story. It's a really fascinating story. But instead of leaving with just that story, I ended up kind of understanding the people inside of the bookshop, the book dealers, a little differently. I started seeing it differently. So hopefully you came on this journey with me about story dealers and you kind of see why I call them story dealers instead of booksellers. Because yeah, they sell me books. Yeah, there's an exchange of money for this book. But that's not what it's about. Well, maybe partly what it's about. They need to pay bills. But at the same time, it's about the community that they build, the regulars that come in, the people that pass through, pick up a book, pick up a story. Maybe it's for their journey, maybe it's something that they're given to someone as a gift. But the fact that someone comes in and picks up that book to take it home and to find out more about this story is where the beauty is. And I think that is probably the most beautiful thing, the fact that ultimately it's not about the books. Well, it is about the books, but it's about the stories and the people. Every person that comes into the bookshop has their own story. Before they even come in and pick up a book, they have their own story. Then someone speaks to a book dealer and the book dealer's just like, yeah, okay, cool. You picked up this book. I've heard that this book is really great because it, tells you this story, and you're just like, oh, okay. I hadn't read it. I heard some good things, but all right, yeah, I'll definitely check it out now. So your story now has another story, and then in your hand or in your bag, you're carrying another story. Storyception. 3 layers of story. I'll figure out a story something for it. But yeah, it's just crazy for me because, like I said, I went in to find out the story of the Brunswick Bookshop, and I totally did. But I have all these other stories and all these other questions and all these other things I want to now explore. Deeper rabbit holes to go down. But anyway, let's get on to the questions. The first question I have for you guys is, what independent bookshop do you think I should go to next? I have an idea of where I want to go, potentially. But yeah, if you have any other recommendations, let me know in the comments. My second question is, has a bookseller ever recommended you a book that becomes one of your favorites? Thinking about it for me, I don't know if I can say yet that I've had a recommendation that I would say is one of my favorites. But like I said, yet I've been recommended quite a few books recently, especially within this interview. One that has been the best book that has ever been read by a person, one person's review, and author that changed a person's life. So these are recommendations that could be one of these 2 books could be one of my favorite books that I ever read. So that's why I say yet. But the question still goes out to you. And my final question is, do you think story dealer is actually a better description for story sellers? I knew instantly the moment I said story, I was saying it wrong. But I had already said story and I was committed. Anyway, let's repeat that question. Do you think that story dealers is actually a better description for booksellers? And those are my 3 questions. One that I messed up and one that I repeated, but still 3. But anyway, we will call that the end. And yeah, thank you for watching. I didn't hold up this book, I realized, before we go for the end and I say goodbye. And this book is important for this video, only because when I was filming some B-roll for this video, or the other videos that I'm gonna record for the Brunswick Bookshop series that I'm gonna make, when I was filming some B-roll, I was filming B-roll of like picking up a book, like someone actually picking up a book, like from the POV kind of view, and like I picked up the book, and like I was looking at the cover, and I think I'll play it in maybe in this video or one of my other videos.
Really addictive. I love so hard, it ain't. God. I think I might actually buy this. Same. Just picked it up for the video.
And it's just like this really funny moment where like I pick up the book and I'm just like, oh shit, I picked this up just for the video, but now I'm reading the cover and reading the blurb. I think I might actually buy this one. Damn, I didn't come in to buy a book today. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's why I thought I'd bring it in for this video. I still need to read it, but like I said, I was reading the reviews. This first review by Jodie Comer, it says, "Incredible book. I couldn't put it down." And I was like, "Jeez, you couldn't put it down, yeah?" I'm curious. And then there was something on the back that said, from Gillian Anderson, that says, "Utterly addictive. I laughed so hard it ached." And I was like, "Jeez." Incredible book, couldn't put it down, laughed so hard it ached. Sold. Ring me up, book dealer, ring me up. But anyway, I'll call that the end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This wasn't the video that I expected, maybe not the video that you expected, but maybe it's the video that you needed to video. Maybe it's the video that you needed to watch. I've been Corey. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this story exploration. Oh, I like that. This story exploration this time. Subscribe if you want more storytelling, creative rabbit holes, or if you enjoyed this video. And yeah, thank you for watching. Come back and watch some more, and yeah, goodbye. I never know what to do when I'm saying goodbye, but waving is probably a good start. That's your cue to drink some water.